Did Peter worship Jesus? Luke 5 verses 1 to 11 exposed. An Islamic analysis of language, context, and true worship. One of the most frequently debated topics between Muslims and Christians is whether the disciples of Jesus, peace be upon him, believed him to be God and worshipped him as such. Among the passages often cited is Luke 5 verses 1 to 11, where Simon Peter reacts to the miraculous catch of fish by falling before Jesus. The central question arises: did Peter worship Jesus as God, or was his action one of humility, awe, and reverence toward a prophet of God? From an Islamic perspective, this question is not merely linguistic, it is theological. It touches on the very essence of Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God, the mission of all prophets, and the preservation of pure monotheism throughout history. This video will demonstrate the meaning of worship in biblical language, the actual behavior of the disciples, the consistent pattern of prophetic worship in the Bible, the teachings of Jesus himself, Quranic and prophetic clarification on the nature of Jesus, why Peter did not worship Jesus as God. 1. The passage, Luke 5 verses 1 to 11 in context. In Luke 5 verse 8, it states, "When Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, 'Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord.'" At first glance, some interpret Peter's act of falling down as worship. However, the text itself does not explicitly say worship. Rather, it describes a reaction of fear, humility, and recognition of divine power working through Jesus. Notice carefully. Peter calls himself a sinful man. He asks Jesus to depart from him. He expresses fear and unworthiness. This is not language of worship toward God. It is the language of someone overwhelmed by a miracle. 2. The word worship, a linguistic problem. One of the key issues raised in the discussion is the inconsistency of the word worship across Bible translations. Different versions, such as KJV, NIV, RSV, use worship, fell before, knelt, paid homage. This reveals something critical. The word worship is not always literal divine worship. Biblical usage of worship. In the Bible, worship can mean respect, honor, submission, reverence. For example, "And Abraham bowed himself toward the ground," Genesis 18 verse 2. Was Abraham worshipping men as God? No. Joseph's brothers bowed down before him, Genesis 42 verse 6. Were they worshipping Joseph as God? No. Thus, bowing or falling down does not equal divine worship. 3. Cultural context, acts of respect versus worship. In ancient Semitic cultures, bowing equals respect, kneeling equals humility, falling on face equals submission. These actions were commonly shown to prophets, kings, leaders, not exclusively to God. This is why the argument that Peter fell down equals worshipped as God is historically inaccurate. 4. The Islamic definition of worship. In Islam, worship, ibadah, is clearly defined. Absolute submission, directed only to Allah, includes prayer, prostration, supplication. The Quran states, "And your Lord has decreed that you worship none but him." Chapter 17 verse 23. And, "Indeed, I am Allah. There is no deity except me, so worship me." Chapter 20 verse 14. Worship is exclusive, not symbolic. 5. How did prophets worship God in the Bible? The discussion correctly highlights a powerful pattern. All prophets worshipped God the same way. Abraham fell on his face, Genesis 17 verse 3. Moses and Aaron, they fell upon their faces, Numbers 20:6. Joshua fell on his face to the earth, Joshua 5 verse 14. Jesus, he fell on his face and prayed, Matthew 26 verse 39. This is crucial. Jesus himself fell on his face in prayer, to God. This proves Jesus worshipped God, he did not worship himself, he taught others to worship God. 6. If Peter worshipped Jesus as God, where is the evidence? If Peter truly believed Jesus was God, why did he never clearly say it? Why did none of the disciples openly proclaim, Jesus is God? Instead, we find the opposite. Acts 2 verse 22. Peter himself says, "Jesus of Nazareth, a man approved of God among you by miracles and wonders and signs, which God did by him." Notice, a man, approved of God, God did by him. This is the Islamic view exactly. Jesus is a prophet empowered by God, not God himself. 7. The challenge: where did Jesus say, "I am God"? A central argument presented. Show me where Jesus says, "I am God," or "worship me." This challenge remains unanswered in clear, explicit terms. If salvation depended on believing Jesus is God, why is there no clear statement? Instead, Jesus says, "The Father is greater than I." John 14 verse 28. "I can of mine own self do nothing." John 5 verse 30. "My Father and your Father, my God and your God." John 20 verse 17. These statements clearly distinguish Jesus from God. 8. The concept of Son of God. Another confusion arises from the title Son of God. In the Bible, this title is used for many. Adam, Luke 3 verse 38. Israel, Exodus 4 verse 22. David, Psalm 2 verse 7. Even Jesus explains, "Is it not written in your law, I said, you are gods?" John 10 verse 34. Thus, Son of God is symbolic, not literal divinity. 9. The reaction of Peter: fear, not worship. Returning to Luke 5 verse 8. Peter says, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man." Compare this with reactions to prophets. People feared Moses. People feared miracles. This is a natural human reaction to divine power, not worship of a deity. 10. Islamic view of Jesus, Isa alayhi salam. The Quran clarifies the truth. The Messiah, son of Mary, was no more than a messenger. Messengers passed away before him. Chapter 5 verse 75. He was not but a servant upon whom we bestowed favor. Chapter 43 verse 59. Indeed, Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so worship him. Chapter 3 verse 51. Jesus himself calls people to worship Allah alone. 11. The true meaning of Acts 4 verse 12. Some argue, there is no other name under heaven by which we must be saved. From an Islamic perspective, this means, follow the messenger of your time. Just as Moses was the way in his time, David in his time, Jesus in his time, Muhammad peace be upon him for all humanity. The Quran states, "And we did not send any messenger except to be obeyed by permission of Allah." Chapter 4 verse 64. 12. The issue of translation and theology. The discussion highlights a major issue: Western interpretations vs. Semitic meanings. The Bible is an Eastern text, full of metaphor, but Greek and Roman influences. Literalized metaphor introduced philosophical interpretations. This led to doctrines like Trinity, divine sonship, which were unknown to earlier prophets. 13. Jesus' own worship and teaching. Jesus taught, "Our Father in heaven," Matthew 6 verse 9. He prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22 verse 42. This proves, he had a will separate from God, he submitted to God. This is the definition of a Muslim, one who submits. 14. The logical conclusion. If Jesus were God, he would not pray to God, he would not say he lacks knowledge, he would not depend on God. Yet he says, "Of that day and hour knows no one, not even the Son." Mark 13 verse 32. God is all-knowing, Jesus is not. 15. Final answer. Did Peter worship Jesus? Based on biblical language, historical context, actions of prophets, teachings of Jesus, Quranic clarification. No, Peter did not worship Jesus as God. Instead, he showed humility, he recognized a miracle, he honored a prophet. Conclusion. The claim that Peter worshipped Jesus as God is based on misinterpretation of language, ignoring cultural context, theological assumptions. Islam restores clarity. Jesus is a mighty messenger, he called to worship of one God, his disciples followed him as a prophet. The Quran summarizes perfectly. They have certainly disbelieved who say, Allah is the Messiah, son of Mary. But the Messiah said, O children of Israel, worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord. Chapter 5 verse 72. Final reflection. True worship belongs to Allah alone. All prophets, including Jesus, came with one message. worship God alone without partners. And Peter, like all true followers, submitted, not to a man as God, but to God through his messenger.